It's been 73 days since the last episode, and the date is now September 10th, 2022. We're back in Montana to conclude our Lewis and Clark trail adventure. In this episode, we're going to drive from where we left off to the Washington state line. Then, in a grand finale, we'll make it all the way to the Pacific. Today we begin at Lewis and Clark Caverns. Then, the Ringing Rocks will stop by Butte and Clark Canyon Reservoir. Cross the Continental Divide at Lemhi Pass. Drive north under the rain and smoke over the Bitterrots all the way to Lolo, and then west on the Lolo Trail all the way to Washington and the Snake River. We're almost there. 2 more episodes and oh, the joy! I'm riding in my RV, wherever I want to be, 'cause I'm free in my RV, yeah. The main problem we're going to encounter during this particular leg of the trip is visibility. September is wildfire season, and this year has been particularly bad. So those snow-capped mountains we saw when we were here at Three Forks, well, I'm glad we saw them back then in June because we're not gonna be able to see them now. The smoke does give the landscape a unique quality, especially for photography. The air quality, however, is noticeably bad. On July 25th, 1805, Sacagawea recognized that rock formation from childhood that the Shoshones called Beaverhead, and that's what we see right there. This was a clear sign the expedition was very close to encountering the Shoshone, who had horses, and hopefully would sell the expedition some, and perhaps help them find a suitable way across the mountains. Something else I am noticing with this smoke is the way the atmosphere filters the solar light. It is much less harsh, almost like going through a diffuser, and much warmer. It is definitely different. We're entering this canyon carved by the Jefferson River, and even though there is no reference in the journal about the caverns, the Lewis and Clark expedition definitely navigated through here. Almost there, and we're going to be staying at the State Park campground. And this is where we restart our Lewis and Clark trip. Nearly 2 months after we left off at Three Forks, now we are at the Lewis and Clark Caverns State Park, which they didn't come to the Caverns. They didn't know the Caverns existed, of course, but they did sail down the Jefferson River, which is just a few feet away. We're probably gonna walk there tomorrow. It's a beautiful campground. We're surrounded by these mountains. The smoke is much better now. I did think in my head we were gonna have electricity, but no, we're completely dry camping here. No power or no hookups whatsoever. So it's been a long driving day. So that's it. Tomorrow we retake this epic route to the west. Well, good morning. It's a beautiful day here in Montana, and today we're gonna explore the Lewis and Clark Caverns. So let's do it. Yeah, everything glows beautifully in the morning sun. Still a little smoky. It is about 3 miles from the campground to the caverns, and there's also a trail that you can hike. We're just gonna drive today. It turns out you have to buy timed tickets, so we just did that, and we're going to return in about an hour. At the time of our visit here, there are two available tours, the Classic and the Paradise Room. Well, we booked the 10:30 a.m. tour, and by the way, they have two tours. One of them is a little more strenuous, and it's 2 hours, and you actually go through a bat cave. We didn't do that one. We're gonna do the easier one today, which is an hour and a half, but you get to see the largest and most decorated part of the cavern. So there you go. And I just noticed that they have a Lewis and Clark icon here to the headwaters and beyond, because while they didn't visit the caverns, they were very close. As I said, they were in the area, let's say it that way. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful out here. They also have a couple of hiking trails here, none of them too strenuous. And maybe this afternoon, you know, they have one with the Jefferson River access, and Jefferson River will be the river where they were, traveling up this river as it got narrower and narrower and more difficult to navigate as they went into the mountains. All right, let's go back to the campground, make some breakfast, and then we'll be back at 10:30. What a view! You can see all the way down to the Jefferson River. Paradise tour.
Well, Mr. Clark came through here in 1805.
Our guide, Jim, probably the best one in the whole park. Let's just say he's been doing this for a very long time, so he's full of anecdotes and jokes. And there's another view of the Jefferson River.
My real name is James Roberts, so we all have different calls, and mine is Jim Bob. Got me holding my buddy down, Molly. Hard rock music.
I love it though.
Yeah, right. Rock it to me, baby. Go ahead on down.
Sure.
Rock it to me, baby. You guys are like me. You grew up with the Beatles, right?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Here we are, Paradise Room.
Ripping off the ceiling, calcifying or hardening, forms dripstone, flowing down the upper side of an incline or slope, like a mountain or hill, or the underside, like a ceiling down along a wall, calcifying or hardening to form flowstone. And finally, steeping or oozing upward or outward, calcifying or hardening, defying gravity. Just watch closely. Right about there should be another drip. There's one. Did anybody see it? Yeah. Right. There's another one. What happens is the calcite drips downward and outward, leaves a hollow space in the middle, resembles a soda pop straw. Finally, a drop of calcite seals the bottom. The calcite distributes on the outside. Soda straws become thicker and longer. Then they're known as a word that we all know pretty easily: stalactites. See, for ceiling, we say stalactites hold tight to the ceiling. They can grow all the way to the ground. We have quite a few stalactites in here, but look at some of the broken ones. When they blasted the exit tunnel, some of these stalactites got hammered. So cave bacon and waterfall, cave popcorn. And this here is called boxwork right in here, boxwork. In the wall, the calcite seeped outward, made tabletops. Dripstone set in, we get what looks like a train trestle or something here. We call that a fracture shield because it starts from a crack or a fracture. Now do you see the little nubbies growing off the edges? Those are called helictites. Helix is Latin for spiral. The white is calcite. The brown is an iron oxide coating on the calcite. Roller coaster column. That's the mountain goat column. That's the half and half column. But that one I showed you earlier is not a column. And it won't be in our lifetime, I don't think. It's ordinary looking rock. For instance, here, and there, and there, and there, and there. You see what I'm saying? Just ordinary looking rock along with all this nice deposit, and you think, isn't that kind of a nuisance? Like you and me. Nanoband. We've seen a lot of stalagmites that have grown all the way to the ceiling and become columns, but now look at this. We have a stalactite that grew all the way down here, connected with that little stalagmite to become a column. We think that one might have happened during the Ice Age when it was chillier in here, because the stalagmites usually form when the calcite drips off the ceiling because it's warmer and then hardens down below. And in this case, it hardened as it went down, so maybe in a chillier time. We call it the baseball bat or the fireman's pole. Could you imagine a frog looking at us with eyes on top of its head, looking at us, a frog?
Just like Kermit, yep.
Yeah. Now let's turn our thinking around just a little bit and think of it as a bear looking away from us. Big ears with the snout to the left. You see that? Now let's take a look at the stalagmite itself. Can you see a couple of sumo wrestlers or sumo huggers? The tunnel has been bugged, right? Am I ready? Am I giving you too much light? You ready to go?
Well, that was certainly a fun, entertaining, and educational tour. I recommend it. So a couple of months ago, we bought this MRE Star. Okay, I had to read the instructions because this comes with a heater bag. So you don't, I mean, this is like for real survival out there if you cannot make a fire. And it comes with crackers, a shortbread cookie, even a lemonade pouch. So it may have overdone it a little bit. Let's hope we don't make a mess here. It's boiling. Okay, at first taste, the cracker, not that great, but hey, if you're hungry. It also came with toasted corn, and it also came with a cookie. It's pretty hot, so I don't know how to eat it without getting my hand burned. Maybe I should put it in a bowl, but I guess you could eat it like this. It's just beans. Well, that MRE was certainly edible. It wasn't like a gourmet meal or anything like that, and nothing remotely like that, but it was alright. And now we're going to a place recommended by the guide at the caves. Actually, the cave tour was good, the excellent guide, and you can tell he loves what he's doing. And he recommended this place nearby called Ringing Rocks. It's supposed to be very interesting. If you take a hammer and you hammer the rocks, they ring, apparently. And for this being the return to the Lewis and Clark trip, we haven't yet, nor are we going to today, visit probably any Lewis and Clark related points of interest besides the the Beaverhead Rock. Beaverhead Rock we saw on the way in.
600 feet, turn right.
But we might see something along the route today. Did I lock the door? I did, yeah.
Take the next right.
Historic point. Let's stop here real quick. Well, here we go. This is one of the places where the Lewis and Clark expedition camped. It says 200 yards, what does it say? 200 yards west of us, which would be right on the bank of the river down there. And this is something that has nothing to do with Lewis and Clark. Seems to be like an abandoned motel, cafe, general store. I mean, the sign almost looks like something out of Route 66. But anyway, we're here on the Lewis and Clark reenactment trip. So, yeah, this is one of the points where they camped. Of course, by this time in the expedition, Clark was coming up the river with the whole expedition, you know, the canoes and all the cargo, if you will. And Clark was traveling by land with a couple of people looking for the Shoshone. The Shoshone were the Native Americans who would sell them horses so they could cross the mountains. And they were the relatives of Sacagawea, which was the Native American woman they brought from the Mandan villages earlier in the trip. Let's continue. I think it is getting smokier. Not great. Not the greatest road here, lots of washboard. The road is certainly getting worse. Jim did not mention it being a four-wheel drive high-clearance road. There's the sign. Road not maintained for low clearance vehicle, but you know someone is gonna try, right? Luckily, we now have the right equipment for this task. It is a very narrow road too. They were not kidding, huh? Here we are at the trailhead.
Ringing rocks that way.
This is today's smoky view of the mountains.
We're almost there. I think those are the ringing rocks right there.
This is it. They have some hammers on a rack so you can ring the rocks.
No, that one doesn't ring. You know what? I could make music with this. Oh, this one's pretty loud. That's awesome.
I was tempted to climb all the way up there, but I decided not to.
Well, those were the famous Ringing Rocks. Now let's go to Butte. Going back down. What a view.
We definitely have to come back one of these days when it is not so smoky. I told you someone was gonna try. There it is. You're gonna have to take my word for it, but it is Butte, Montana. The statue atop the mountain is called Our Lady of the Rockies, a 90-foot statue of the Virgin Mary. One of these days we should try to get up there. Butte is often referred to as the richest hill on earth because of all the gold, silver, and copper mines in the city. There are thousands of historic buildings from the boom times, many of them vacant. There are still 14 remaining headframes over the mine shafts. I get a little bit of a ghost town vibe, if you know what I mean. At least today on a Sunday afternoon, there's not a whole lot going on.
Well, last time I was here in Butte, I had Mini Teeny in tow, so I couldn't park anywhere. So today we were able to park, and let's see what there is to see. It feels very much like a ghost town, literally. I mean, most businesses are closed, and I mean, it is a Sunday afternoon, so, but still, most businesses, a lot of them seem permanently closed, and there's not a whole lot of people on the streets. There's a brewery here coming up, so we're gonna see if we can check it out. Well, this is it, Quarry Brewing. Pretty cool town, Butte. So let's go back up.
Good brewery in a historic building, but not very lively on this Sunday afternoon.
Oh yeah, they have this whole street dressed up as if it was like the 1920s, and they are filming. They are filming a TV series here. I believe someone told us at the brewery it was like a prequel to Yellowstone. I've never watched Yellowstone. One of the 3 people who haven't. So but this is really cool. When we arrived at the street earlier, it was kind of creepy to see all this, and we were like, that's strange, but Yeah. That's really cool. By the way, they're pretending to be like, they're making this sound, this town be like Bozeman in the 1920s, but
I guess this is where they keep all the period cars for the filming. Cool to see all the fake displays and storefronts, facades.
okay, here we have a cool boondocking spot, a brewery that may have been really good in years past. And look at that.
Yep, Our Lady of the Rockies, ever present. Just a quiet Sunday afternoon in Butte.
And here we have a dune buggy.
We decided to go for Metals Sports Bar and Grill, located at the historic Metals Bank building. Seems nice. They still have the original marble teller counters, and more importantly, the vault. There's a VIP table and the wine cellar.
That's pretty cool. The vault is like a wine cellar. And the food is here. Here's the game. Butte in its heyday. Very cool.
7 degrees. But again, as we head into tomorrow afternoon, we will see
So this is where we ate Metals. It is at the Metals Bank building, which is a historic building here from 1906. And I mean, the burger was decent. I mean, we're in Montana. You're gonna have good beef, but the sides were alright. Good IPA too. So yeah, overall a good experience. Not the place that the bartender at the brewery recommended, but the setting was cool. You're inside an old bank, and you still have the vault there, and even the tellers, you can see them. So that was good. Well, good morning. Look at that sun, obscured by the smoke. Hopefully it'll improve. Which, by the way, we brought our battery down to like 23% last night. Yesterday we didn't get much solar. I mean, even after we returned from Butte, the battery was at 44%. I was expecting it to be at least 60. So I guess either one of the panels is malfunctioning, or maybe, it's all the smoke, we didn't get enough solar. But now, a miracle, and something I hadn't noticed. Apparently, Starship is able to charge the battery, the lithium battery. Something that didn't happen with the Colorado. I did know that Starship, the Silverado, came with a larger alternator, so maybe that's the reason why. But I hadn't noticed that before. It's not charging at any high rate. It's like 100 watts, which is, it would take 24 hours to fully charge the battery. But hey, it is something, right? So that's great. Well, now we're gonna, see a couple of the Lewis and Clark points of interest. And we're gonna see if we can find the campground. Maybe run the generator for a couple hours, like to fully charge the battery. And the goal today is Lemhi Pass, which is the first time Lewis and Clark crossed the Continental Divide, and they thought that the Columbia River was going to be right there, and they saw a bunch of mountains as far as the eye can see, so that was disappointing for them. But in any case, I won't ramble anymore. Let's get on the road.
If you see some glitches on this footage from the trailer camera, it's not you, it is me. I had a corrupt memory card, and even though I was able to recover most of the footage, unfortunately all of it looks like this.
Well, here we are at the dump station, and I just noticed that they don't have like a regular garden hose connection, and my RV has the water fill on the other side. So I'm gonna dump first, and then I'm gonna have to drive around on the other side and and fill up the water.
This is going to be one of the most scenic and important parts of this trip, so even though it is going to be a little glitchy, I think the footage is just too important to omit. The diffused light does give everything a unique tonal quality, almost ethereal, otherworldly. Such a beautiful landscape, even with all this smoke. We definitely must return in a different season with clearer skies. This is the moment when Sacagawea looked at the mountain to the right and said, "Guys, I've seen this before. That's where my people used to spend their summers when I was a kid. They call it the Beaverhead." And so they were one step closer to finding the Shoshones.
Well, here we are, another quick stop on the road, and this would be Beaverhead Rock. And we saw it when we were coming here, as we were retaking the Lewis and Clark road a couple of days ago, coming to this area. And yeah, here they have like another historical marker. Let me tell you, I don't know if it's noticeable on camera, but the smoke is a lot worse today. Maybe for some photographies it'll give it that sense of distant mountains, but the real distant mountains we can't see. So that's kind of a bummer, but you cannot do anything about the weather. In any case, Beaverhead Rock here. This is where Sacagawea went. Wait a minute, I've been here before. This is where my people spend their winter, hunting for buffalo or whatnot. I don't recall exactly what she said. I don't think anybody knows exactly what she said, but the point is she recognized this mountain, and that gave Lewis and Clark hope that they were close to the land of the Shoshone. This is where we're going next. At some point today or tomorrow, we're going to cross Lemhi Pass, which goes into Idaho, actually. We may not be able to see much, but that's where we're going, to the very spot where Lewis and Clark, Lewis mainly, Clark was still, rowing up river on the Jefferson River, but the spot where they met the Shoshone, and eventually they negotiated, to get some horses and what. The rest is history.
The smoke is definitely getting worse. And here's another historical marker.
There she is, Sacagawea, telling Lewis and Clark about Beaverhead Mountain. Beaverhead Rock, actually. And what a difference a day or two make. Okay, so I misspoke when I said that this is where the Shoshone came in the winter to hunt for buffalo. What was I thinking? It says here that she recognized this as the summer retreat of her nation on a river beyond the mountain. So this is where the Shoshone came in the summer, which, I don't know, it's kind of hot here in the summer and cool in the mountains where they lived. So
our next stop, Clark's Lookout in Dillon, Montana. I'm so bummed out about all this smoke. I think that's it.
Here's William Clark, map maker. And yeah, the maps created by Clark were actually, you compare it with a modern map, and they're very accurate. Actually, besides the smoke, the weather is very nice. It's actually a clear day. It's probably high 50s, 60 degrees. And I could definitely use this exercise.
As the story goes, on August 13th, 1805, Captain William Clark climbed to this hill overlooking the Beaverhead River to get a sense of his surroundings and to document the location.
It says here the monument design is taken from the small pocket compass carried by William Clark on the expedition. So there we go. And here's the view from the top. Hopefully he got a much better view, since in all my research I haven't seen any accounts of wildfires or smoke.
Perhaps these wildfires were not as common in the early 19th century. Anyway, there are mountains out there. We just can't see them.
Well, to think William Clark stood at this very spot is quite remarkable. After such a long journey, they came all the way together from Clarksville, Indiana, across the river from Louisville, Kentucky, where we were, several months ago now. And today is September 12th.
I think it is a fortuitous coincidence that we're going to be crossing the mountains at the same time of the year Lewis and Clark did. Next, we're going to the Continental Divide, but first we must drop the trailer at a campground by Clark Canyon Reservoir because the road to Lemhi Pass is supposed to be very isolated with lots of sharp turns and steep grades. Better safe than sorry. We've been driving southwest on I-15, and here's Beaverhead Campground, which is one of several campgrounds around the reservoir. Yes, I like this. This is what we're gonna call it. So to recap, we left this morning from Lewis and Clark Caverns, stopped by Beaverhead Rock, Clark's Lookout. Now we're gonna get some work done here at Horse Prairie Campground before heading to Lemhi Pass. That road doesn't even show on the map at this zoom level.
Alright, here we are. We got a little bit of work done. I ran the generator for a couple hours to charge the batteries to full 100% since we were so depleted. And this is called Horse Meadow Campground, and I do believe it is free. It's 14-day limit, that's all they say, but I don't see any fee area signs or anything like that. So it is here. Look at that beautiful view. This is the Clark Canyon Reservoir, and down there is the, I believe it's called Camp Fortunate. I don't recall exactly right now what happened on the Lewis and Clark expedition there, but we'll soon find out. But I think we're the only ones here, except for the camper van over there, and there's a Silverado looking badass.
Looks like we're gonna have new neighbors.
Okay, I think now I got my facts straight. And this is Camp Fortunate, and it was very fortunate for one reason. And after here, Lewis went over to the Continental Divide, which is Lemhi Pass. That's where we're going now. And then down to the other side, where he actually met with the Shoshone chief, and they eventually smoked the pipe of peace, and they became friends. And well, not really. But he convinced them to come back to this side and meet the rest of the party. And lo and behold, part of in the party was Sacagawea. And I mean, you cannot come up with this stuff, like this. Turns out that Sacagawea and the chief were brother and sister. So it was very fortunate that he found Sacagawea, because that was the turning point where they said, okay, yeah, Lewis and Clark, we're gonna sell you the horses, and so you can continue the journey. Had this not happened, who knows if they would have been able to to cross over to the other side and eventually find the Columbia River. So this is it. This is the same reservoir where we are staying. Actually, the actual site is somewhere beneath the water because, of course, this is a reservoir. Now let's go over to Lemhi Pass, which that's one of the reasons why we decided to drop the trailer here, because they don't recommend trailers on that road. There it is.
Here's a requisite expedition map.
So yeah, we are here, kind of. Here's where they bought the horses, came back here, and here they have a canoe.
Now let's go to the Continental Divide. At this point, Lewis and his small party of 4 were traveling by land a good 3 days ahead of Clark and the rest of the crew, looking for the Shoshones and hoping for an easy portage over the Rockies. He would become the first American to see Idaho. We're going to stop here on the left at the Shoshone Ridge Overlook, which is, by the way, the one place where we could have dropped the trailer.
Shoshone Ridge. And now we're going to, can't barely see it, but Lemhi Pass, which is here. We are here, so we're going here, and then we're gonna take this road, which is supposed to be that's the one that you're not supposed to take the trailer on. So let's check out these exhibits here. And the mountains have to be somewhere out there. We just can't see them because of the the smoke. Here, Lewis and Clark into the mountains. I bet you this is Clark's map.
What was a faint shadow over the horizon is now becoming more and more visible. The Beaverhead Mountains are up ahead. After driving through some private land, we are now approaching Lemhi Pass, managed by the Forest Service. Now we also begin the ascent to 7,373 feet above sea level. This is it, Lemhi Pass.
Up until this point, Meriwether Lewis had this wishful thinking that passing this Continental Divide, the Lemhi, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, Lemhi Pass. He had this wishful thinking that he would find the Columbia River right after this. In fact, I think he drank from a creek here, and he said, I have drank water from the Columbia River. But he didn't realize that there were mountains as far as the eye can see to the west. And in fact, we can only see like 2 or 3 ridges, but because of the smoke. But there are mountains as far as the eye can see going west. And yeah, eventually he realized that the overland part of the trip wouldn't be as easy as he had envisioned. Now we're gonna go to a spot where he actually met the Shoshone chief.
Now, there are 2 roads that we can take from here west towards Tendoy. The one on the right goes over the ridge, and the one on the left follows Agency Creek, and that's the one we are going to take first. RVs and trailers are not advised. Notice it doesn't say forbidden. Neither of them is very well marked, and they both say Lewis and Clark Highway on Google Maps. Hopefully, we'll make it to the other side. By the way, we are now in Idaho. Somewhere around here is where Lewis said he encountered a handsome, bold running creek of cold, clear water, where he first tasted the water of the Great Columbia River. Little did he know he still had a long way to go. Hold on, There's a marker here on the right. Let's go back and see what it is. Well, what do you know? Lewis and Clark First Idaho Campsite. Let's stop here at Agency Creek Campground and read the interpretive signs. Here's another reference to the First Idaho Camp, and they would have met with the Shoshone chief somewhere west of here. And this was probably the handsome bald running creek of cold clear water where Lewis thought he had tasted the Columbia River. Now we continue west, but unfortunately most of that footage was lost beyond repair. And we have arrived in Tendoy, and there are so many historical markers around here, like the spot where Lewis unfurled the American flag for the first time west of the Rockies. We're going to try to get to that very spot. Of course, it is not all about Lewis and Clark. Things did happen here afterwards. It is so smoky as we drive along the Lemhi River here. It looks like it might be clearing up a little bit. And what have we got here on the left? Ooh, Sacagawea's birthplace. She would have been born somewhere near here in 1786. Let's zoom in on that marker. It marks the site of the Salmon River Mission, established by Mormons in 1855. Now, this was not part of the original plan, but we're gonna take the other road on the way back, the one that goes over the ridge. It is 16 miles to Lemhi Pass. This is called the Backcountry Byway, and there's an interpretive kiosk. There's a hint of blue sky, so I'm still hopeful. Here we have a fork, and this portion of the road is called Warm Springs Wood Road. And here we have our most important landmark. I don't know exactly how they determined that, but apparently this was the very spot where Meriwether Lewis unfurled the flag for the first time west of the Rockies, strengthening America's claim on this land. Up here, on this remote ridge. And we've got cows. We're about to enter a more wooded area, and it is also a narrower road with drop-offs. Ooh, this will be tight. Close call, huh? Yay, wildlife! They usually come out at this time of the day. And we're back where we started. Lemhi Pass. Well, I think we've had enough fun for one day. Again, I apologize for the glitches in the video. Check it out! Wildlife. I told you this is the time when they come out. Magnificent creatures. Check it out! The smoke has cleared. For the most part.
All I gotta say is, this was a very nice dry camping spot.
Well, yeah, no, it's still smoky. And there's rain in the forecast, but regardless, this was a very nice campground here by Clark Canyon Reservoir. Let me tell you, Montana is full of pleasant surprises. I just wish it wasn't so smoky, even though it has cleared up a little bit. I mean, some of those mountains weren't there yesterday. And this is where the pavement ends. I guess this is the only way through this area, over the Continental Divide, on our way to Idaho. Although, let me tell you, Google has taken us on some unnecessarily bad roads before. I mean, as far as dirt roads goes, this one is not so bad. After crossing this cattle guard, which happens to be Bannock Pass, the Continental Divide, we are now in Idaho. Yeah, they forgot to put up a sign here too. Boondocking spot perhaps? We're back on pavement, and it is BLM land. In fact, in a Plan B we had a BLM campground picked out. It must be coming up soon. Here's Ledor, population 105. Here's where we're going to take States Route 28 north. Here we are. This would have been our Plan B, or Plan A actually, when I thought I might be able to cross Lemhi Pass with the trailer in tow. And even though we would have probably made it, I'm glad we didn't. This is called McFarland Campground, and they do have potable water and pit toilets. I will definitely save this one in my map for future reference, because you know we're coming back to this area one of these days when it is not smoky. This is where we left off, where we were yesterday actually after going over Lemhi Pass. The smoke is getting so much worse in this area. You can really smell it now. Here on the right is the Sacagawea Center, yet another interpretive center along the Lewis and Clark Trail, as we arrive in Salmon, Idaho. But first, let's have lunch, and it probably won't be salmon. After much research, we decided to come to the Savage Grill. It has good reviews and you can never go wrong with the burger, especially with all the cows we've seen along the way.
Alright, those were probably the most perfectly crispy tater tots I've ever had, but then again, we're now in Idaho, so potatoes, right?
Now let's go see Sacagawea.
Well, yeah, first we had smoke, now we have smoke and rain, but I'm sure they could use all the rain they can get with all these fires. In any case, I don't know if I'm gonna go inside, but at the very least, let's see the gardens here and the statue, because after all, this, or near here, was Sacagawea's birthplace. I do believe somewhere around here is a sculpture, a statue of Seaman the dog. I see Seaman the dog, which was, of course, Meriwether Lewis's dog. What is this on the rock? It's a BLM marker. Well, here he is, Seaman. I think he was a little larger in real life. The dog of discovery, inscribed on his collar.
I really thought about going into the museum, but nah, blame it on the rain. We are approaching mountains again, as Lewis and Clark did on September 1st, 1805. Let me tell you, this canyon with good weather must be awesome, quite a sight to see. Let's stop by the historical marker. It is not clear exactly which route Lewis and Clark took after this point. They were following a Shoshone guide they called Old Toby going north. All we know is that eventually they made it to Lolo Pass, which is coincidentally our final destination today. We've reached the top of this particular ridge, and this is called Lost Trail Pass. Let's read the interpretive sign.
This is it, Lost Trail Pass. Yeah, nobody knows the exact route. September 3rd. Montana Geographic Board named the Lost Trail Pass in 1935 in recognition of the Lewis and Clark expedition. There you go.
And we're back in Montana. We're going to make a quick detour to see if we can find a place called Ross's Hall. The expedition would have arrived here September 5th, 1805, and they stayed for 2 days. Here they met the friendly Salish people and bought several extra horses. There's supposed to be an interpretive sign somewhere around here, but we can't find it, so we're just gonna turn around. This, by the way, the Bitterrots River. I guess it is a mixture of smoke and clouds at this point. Very photogenic, but I'd rather have blue skies and sunshine. Don't think I've ever seen smoke this thick before. And here's another interpretive sign about the expedition. They camped around here September 9th through the 11th at Traveler's Rest. And we've finally made it to Lolo. Here to the left, Traveler's Rest State Park. As we saw at the interpretive sign, this is where the expedition finally found the Nez Perce Trail that goes west across the mountains, later called the Lolo Trail. That happens to be the road we're taking tomorrow, nowadays US 12. We're staying at Yellow Rock Campground, which is actually very nice. We really could use a night with full hookups. Who knew? There's a good brewery in town. Lolo Peak Brewery and Grill, and I'm sure the view out that large window is great on a clear day.
Brewing Company. The nachos. Not the nachos.
It is still smoky and foggy with low-hanging clouds, and the idea today is to finish crossing the mountains and stay somewhere on the Snake River, which is a tributary to the Columbia. And that is going to be the last leg of this trip. Here's an interesting coincidence. We are filming this on September 13th, 2022, and it is likely the expedition was going through here, also on September 13th, in 1805. Part of this drive is going to feel like a great exercise in deja vu, since we're going to be seeing very similar views as we follow the meandering West Fork Lolo Creek and eventually the Loxar River. We are crossing back into Idaho, going into the Pacific time zone. This is the beginning of our long descent towards the Pacific. And here we have another historical marker. Oh, this one is from the return trip. Let's take a quick break.
Let's check it out. Hello there.
This is such a beautiful drive. It is kind of hard to edit things out. I almost feel like leaving it uncut. But then this would become an even longer video. There's a suspension bridge, so let's stop and see if we can walk on it.
Well, it says Eagle Mountain Trail, which seems like a long trail, but I just want to go to that. There's a footbridge that seems to be pretty cool, so let's check it out.
Beautiful views of the Laksa River from here, from the bridge, all these rapids. And it seems to be a good fishing spot too. I see an angler down there.
Let me tell you something, this is one area we must return to. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, take a look at this place.
By the way, we haven't seen a town or a gas station for miles. I'm really glad we filled up in Lolo last night and no cell phone coverage at all whatsoever. There is really nothing out here but nature. Oh wait, I spoke too soon. It is miles and miles of this. At some point, you even start taking all this beauty for granted. After 111 miles on this road, we are arriving at the small community of Lowell, Idaho. And here's where we're gonna stop for lunch.
This is where we had lunch. Nothing fancy, some ramen.
We are now riding along the Clearwater River. On September 22nd, 1805, the Corps of Discovery finally emerged from the mountains, having completed the great feat of crossing the Rockies. Here they met the Nez Perce. They were just a couple of weeks away from their final destination, the Pacific Ocean. Here, everybody got sick from eating dried fish and boiled roots given to them by the Nez Perce. But the bigger problem was finding large enough trees to make canoes. It wasn't until they reached the site of present-day Orofino that they were finally able to find large enough ponderosa pines that could be made into canoes. Let's stop real quick.
We're here right by the river. They don't say anything about Lewis and Clark. There was another historic site earlier that we didn't have a pull through, so we couldn't stop there. But this is the Clearwater River here, and it must have been somewhere around here. I should show you the river, right? Where they finally found a large enough trees like this ponderosa pine right here, for example, to make the canoes. And after they made the canoes, they started once again for the first time since they found the Rockies, and for the first time since they joined the Mississippi. For the first time again, they were going downstream, which must have been very refreshing for them. Yeah, I think you could make a canoe out of that tree. That's probably one of the ones that they used. But as you can see, it's the landscape. It's changing. The topography is changing a lot. And now we're going to Lewiston. and we're gonna start finding somewhere to overnight tonight.
We're approaching Lewiston, but first let's go to the higher ground. It is called Lewiston Hill Overlook. From the top, we're going to be able to see the confluence of the Clearwater and the Snake Rivers, and the cities of Lewiston on the Idaho side and Clarkston on the Washington side. I'll let you guess who those two were named after.
There it is, Lewiston.
Yeah, it is still very smoky. Oh well, hopefully as we approach the Pacific, it'll improve. One can only hope.
To the right, Washington. To the left, Idaho.
Let's see if we can get close to the river. There's a historical site coming up ahead. It is not related to Lewis and Clark, but all I really want to do is see the confluence.
There it is, the river. You can almost imagine seeing Lewis and Clark navigating. Not much of a view. I thought I was going to be able to see the confluence over there, but we'll keep on driving. There may be another historic site right at the confluence. I don't know.
The bottom line is some of these things are hard to navigate, and your ability to park and explore is very limited while towing a trailer. Original plan, we were going to stop by Walla Walla and eat the best pizza ever, but it's too out of the way. It is getting late and we are getting tired. So we're just gonna find a campground and call it a day. I can't help but notice the drastic change in scenery. And as I was saying, on the next episode, we will finish this epic adventure. Until then, thank you so much for watching. And see you on the road. Riding in my